The scream hit me like a slap across the face. I don't even want your last name anymore. Lauren was standing right there in our living room, the one we'd painted together back in 2018, holding the framed marriage certificate that had hung above the fireplace for 19 years. Her hands were shaking, but not from sadness. From something sharper. She yanked the frame open, pulled out the thick paper, and ripped it hard down the middle. The tear echoed, raw and final. She threw the two pieces onto the coffee table like they were nothing. I'm done with this. I'm going out with Mark tonight. Don't wait up. Mark, the work friend from her marketing firm, the one whose name had come up more and more over the years. She grabbed her coat and purse from the chair, didn't even look back at me. The front door slammed behind her. Through the window, I saw his black SUV idling in the driveway, exhaust curling in the cold Ohio air. She climbed in. The doors closed, and they drove off into the night. I stood there for a long minute. The house felt suddenly bigger, quieter. I walked over, picked up the two halves of the certificate. The edges were uneven. My signature from 2006 next to hers. I folded them neatly and slid them into the drawer of the end table. My fingers were steady. No tremor. Just this low, steady feeling in my gut that I kept pushed down. That whole night, I sat at the kitchen table. The clock on the microwave flipped from 11:47 to 3:22 to 5:58. Her spot at the table stayed empty. The coffee I made for myself went untouched, surface cold and still. Outside, the streetlight hummed. I kept replaying the rip of that paper. The way her voice had gone high and ugly on my last name. By 7:30 I was showered, dressed in my usual button-down, and out the door. The courthouse opened at 8. I was the second person in line. At 8:01 exactly, I pushed the forms across the counter to the clerk. Petition for dissolution of marriage. And the request to restore her maiden name, Bennett. She said she didn't want mine. Fine. I took her at her word. The clerk didn't bat an eye. Just stamped everything and gave me my copies. I walked back to my truck in the parking lot, the November wind cutting across the lot. Sat there for a moment with the engine running, heater blowing. Then I drove to work like any other day. If this is the first time you're hearing any of this, let me tell you who I am. I'm Ryan Whitaker, 47 years old. I manage logistics and fleet operations for a major trucking company here in Columbus, Ohio. 19 years at the same outfit, worked my way up from dispatcher. Lauren and I got married young. I was 28, she was 26. We have 2 kids, Emma, who's a senior in high school, and Tyler, 14, all basketball and video games. We have the house in Hilliard with the big backyard, the 2 cars, the life we built one overtime shift at a time. Or at least I thought we had. That morning after filing, I started thinking back. Really thinking. Not the way I used to, where I'd explain things away. The double life had been there, hiding in plain sight for years. I just hadn't wanted to see the pattern. It started small, around 5 years ago. Lauren got a promotion at the marketing agency. More responsibility, she said. More late nights. Team brainstorms with Mark on the big client accounts. Mark Reynolds. Tall guy. Always in those fitted shirts when he'd come by for the occasional barbecue. I'd shake his hand, grill the burgers, and think nothing of it when he'd laugh a little too easy with her by the cooler. There was the time last spring when she had to go to a weekend conference in Chicago. With Mark. I offered to drive her to the airport. She said no need. He'd pick her up since they were on the same flight. When she got back, she had new earrings. Nice ones. Duty-free, she told me when I noticed. I nodded. Inflation was crazy. Gas prices through the roof. Everyone was tightening belts. I was pulling extra shifts to cover the new HVAC unit we'd put in. Why question a gift from a work trip? Looking back now, it was all there. The slow shift. The way we became I in her sentences. The way our bed felt bigger even when she was in it. I wasn't perfect either. I know that. I worked too much. Came home tired and checked out. Watching games on my phone instead of asking about her day. Took her for granted probably. But this was something else. This was years of something running parallel to our marriage. She came home the next morning after that blow-up, acting like it was any Tuesday. Made her coffee. Asked if Tyler needed money for lunch. I didn't say a word about the papers I'd filed or the ripped certificate in the drawer. Just watched her move around the kitchen like she belonged there. The steady feeling stayed steady. The steady feeling stayed steady. She rinsed her mug, the water splashing loud in the sink, and headed out without the usual "love you" tossed over her shoulder. The garage door rattled up, then settled with a final thunk. I stood there a minute longer, the cold tile under my socks, staring at the spot where her car had been. The house smelled like burnt toast from Tyler's breakfast attempt. I scraped the pan, the metal edge scraping the ceramic, and left for work. The drive to the terminal was the same 12 miles of gray highway, wipers slapping at the light snow, heater blasting on my left foot because the right vent always stuck. I kept the radio off. Just the hum of the tires and my own breathing, even and slow. At the yard, diesel fumes hit me the second I stepped out of the truck, thick, familiar, grounding. Steve waved from the dispatch window, coffee in hand. "Morning, boss. Routes for the Dayton run look tight with this weather. Adjust the 7 a.m. to leave 20 minutes early," I said. Voice flat. No edge. "Call if they need chains." He nodded, but his eyes lingered a second longer than usual. I walked past the rows of parked semis, boots crunching on the salted lot, and shut my office door behind me. The blinds stayed half closed. Paperwork stacked neat. I powered through the morning manifests, pins scratching across the forms, numbers lining up clean. Every now and then my thumb would press too hard on the calculator, leaving a white mark on the skin, but I'd shake it out and keep going. Lunch was a cold meatloaf sandwich from home, eaten standing at the window overlooking the fuel pumps. The bread had gone stiff in the fridge overnight. I chewed slow, watching a driver top off his tank, breath fogging in the cold. Thought about how Lauren used to pack my lunch back when the kids were in diapers. Little notes folded into the foil. "You're my favorite trucker." I'd smile, tuck them in my wallet. Somewhere along the way the notes stopped. I never asked why. Figured we were just busy. I was pulling 60-hour weeks easy, trying to make regional manager by 45. Thought providing the overtime checks was the same as being there. My mistake. Big one. The afternoon dragged in that same steady rhythm. Phone calls about delayed loads. One driver stuck in construction on I-70. I rerouted him calm, gave him the new ETA, hung up. My hand stayed loose on the desk. But inside my chest there was this low pressure, like the cab of a truck when the air brakes hold just right. Ready, but not blowing. I got home at 6:12. The house smelled warm. Garlic, soy, sesame oil. Lauren had the Thai bag spread across the counter, sleeves rolled up on her blouse. Tyler was already digging into the pad CEW, sauce on his chin. Emma scrolled her phone at the end of the table, earbud in one ear. "Extra spring rolls," Lauren said, sliding a container toward my spot. Her voice light, like we'd just had a normal Tuesday. "Figured you'd be hungry after the long day." I sat, unwrapped the chopsticks, the wood snapping apart with a clean crack. The noodles were still hot, steam rising, burning the roof of my mouth a little on the first bite. Good burn. I ate without saying much. Watched her across the table, the way she tucked hair behind her ear, the small diamond studs I bought her for our 10th anniversary, catching the overhead light. She laughed at something Tyler said about his coach yelling during practice. The laugh sounded real. Almost. After the kids cleared their plates and scattered, Tyler to shoot hoops in the driveway, Emma upstairs, she started loading the dishwasher. I dried my hands on the towel hanging by the sink, the fabric stiff from too many washes. "Lauren." She straightened, closed the door with her hip. "Yeah." I pulled the drawer, took out the two torn halves, laid them flat on the granite. The edges still jagged. Then I set the folded court papers beside them. The stamp from the clerk's office was dark blue, official. Her eyes went to the papers. The color drained from her cheeks slow, like watching a truck's brake lights fade in the distance. "You filed 8:01 this morning. Like I said." She picked up the top sheet, fingers trembling just enough to make the paper flutter. "Ryan, we had one fight. One bad night. You said you didn't want the name anymore." I kept my tone even, the same one I use when a driver's late and traffic's bad. "I took you at your word. You're Bennett again on the paperwork. Divorce petition's in." The kitchen clock ticked loud. Outside, Tyler's basketball thumped against the concrete, steady, rhythmic. Lauren set the paper down like it might burn her. She crossed her arms tight across her chest, the silk blouse wrinkling under her fingers. "Mark is just a colleague. We've worked together for years. You're blowing this way out of proportion because you're always at that damn yard." I didn't answer right away. Just picked up the papers, folded them once, slid them back into my briefcase on the chair. The latch clicked shut. The sound final. "I'm not blowing anything," I said. I'm finishing what you started when you ripped that certificate. She opened her mouth, closed it, grabbed her coat from the back of the chair. I need air. The front door closed softer this time. I stood at the window, watched her walk down the driveway, phone already to her ear. Her breath puffed white in the cold. The basketball stopped. Tyler looked over at me through the glass, face uncertain. I gave him a small nod, the kind that says keep shooting, kid. Later, when the house was quiet and the snow had started sticking to the porch rail, I sat in the recliner with the remote in my hand. Screen off. Just the low hum of the furnace kicking on. My thumb traced the seam on the armrest, the leather worn smooth from years of me sitting right here after long days. The steady feeling held, but underneath it, something else shifted into place, like a load finally balanced after miles of uneven road. This double life of hers. It hadn't started with that scream. It had been running right alongside ours for a long damn time. And now the road was splitting. The road was splitting, all right. I sat in that recliner until the furnace cycled off and the house went dead quiet except for the occasional creak of settling beams. The leather armrest was worn smooth under my thumb. Same spot I'd rubbed 1,000 nights waiting for loads to clear or kids to get home. Around 2 a.m., I finally moved to the couch, pulled the old Afghan over me, still smelled like her lavender detergent, and stared at the dark ceiling until the alarm went off at 5:30. Morning routine didn't skip a beat. Coffee maker gurgled, same 4 scoops. Tyler clattered down first, backpack half-zipped, shoving Pop-Tarts into his mouth while scrolling basketball highlights. Emma followed, earbuds already in, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. Lauren came last, hair still damp, navy blouse crisp. She poured her cup without looking at me, spoon clinking against the rim. Big client meeting today, she said. Voice light, like nothing had happened. Might run late. I nodded, mug warm between both palms. All right. She left at 7 sharp. Garage door rattled down behind her. I stood at the sink rinsing plates, the hot water steaming up the window, and watched her taillights disappear around the corner. The knot in my chest pulled tighter, slow and steady, like winching down a load that wanted to shift. Not rage. Just wait. Work kept me moving. Diesel fumes hit me the second I stepped onto the yard, thick and oily, the way they always did in cold weather. Steve had the morning manifest spread out, highlighter marks yellow across the pages. Dayton run's gonna be slick with this frost, boss. Pull the chains for the trailers, I said. Kept my tone even. Signed off on the overtime sheets, pen moving steady across the lines. Inside, my mind kept circling back to the bank app on my phone. I didn't open it yet. Not there. That evening the house smelled like leftover Thai still in the fridge when I got home. I heated a plate, the noodles sliding slick and hot. Tyler came in from practice, cheeks red, ball tucked under his arm. He dropped it by the door with a thud. Dad, you and Mom fighting again? I looked at him, 14 years old, already taller than me, same worried crease between his brows that used to show up when he missed a free throw. We're sorting some things out, bud. Nothing you need to carry. He nodded, but his shoulders stayed hunched when he grabbed a Gatorade from the fridge. The door shut with a soft suck. Later I heard him shooting hoops in the driveway, the ball hitting the concrete harder than usual, echoing off the garage. Lauren rolled in at 10:42. I was still at the kitchen table, laptop open to nothing important. She hung her coat, the hanger clinking. New gold bracelet on her wrist caught the light. Thin, delicate, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. She saw me notice. Team bonus, she said quick. Close that big account finally. Nice. I closed the laptop lid. Clicked soft. Didn't ask questions. She stood there a second longer, fingers twisting the bracelet. Ryan, you can't seriously think this divorce is happening. One bad night, and you file papers? That's not us. I stood up slow. Floorboards creaked under my boots. You said you didn't want the name. Left with him. Ripped the certificate. Seems like you made the call. Her mouth opened, closed. The lines around her eyes looked deeper under the overhead light. Mark's just, he listens. You're always gone. The yard, the overtime, the games on your phone. I've been carrying everything here for years. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. I carried the mortgage when inflation hit 12%. Carried the braces, the camps, the college fund we started. You carried the secrets. Guess we both had our loads. She grabbed her purse again. I can't do this right now. I'm staying at Sarah's tonight. Maybe a couple nights. Need space to breathe. All right. The front door closed quieter than usual. Her car started, faded down the street. I waited until the taillights were gone, then walked to the garage keypad. Punched in the new code for numbers I'd picked that afternoon. The panel beeped confirmation. Small thing, but necessary. Back at the table, I opened the bank app. Transactions scrolled under the glow of the screen. The knot tightened another notch. Dinners at places with wine lists and valet, $214 here, $178 there. Hotel in Chicago last month, 2 nights, room service. All tagged work or client entertainment. Dates lined up with the weekends. She said she had conferences. Amounts climbing the last 2 years, right when she started talking about needing more excitement in her life. I closed the app, sat back. The chair creaked. Outside, Tyler's basketball had stopped. House was silent except for the fridge humming low. My hands rested flat on the table, steady as always. But the pressure in my chest had a new edge now, sharp like the first time you feel a tire going soft on the highway. Not blown yet, but you know the ride's about to change. This wasn't one scream. Wasn't one ripped piece of paper. It was years of parallel lanes I'd been driving blind in the right one. And I was finally checking the mirrors. This wasn't one scream. Wasn't one ripped piece of paper. It was years of parallel lanes I'd been driving blind in the right one. And I was finally checking the mirrors. The next morning, frost etched white patterns on the kitchen window. Coffee maker gurgled and sputtered. Tyler shuffled in first, socks sliding on the tile, hair sticking up. Emma trailed, phone screen glowing against her cheek. They both glanced at Lauren's empty chair. Mom still at Sarah's? Emma asked, voice flat. Yeah, I said, sliding 2 plates of eggs across the counter. Yolks wobbled, steam curling up. We're figuring some things out. Adult stuff. You two don't need to worry. Tyler poked his eggs with a fork, tine scraping. Is it because she yelled? I heard the door slam. I poured more coffee, pot heavy. Something like that. Eat up. Bus in 12. Emma zipped her backpack harder, eyes flicking to the drawer. Headed for the door. Tyler followed, basketball thumping the frame. House went quiet. I rinsed the plates under scalding water and left for the yard. Diesel fumes hit me at the terminal, thick with salt spray. Steve met me at the office door, clipboard ready, breath fogging. Morning, Ryan. Couple drivers out sick with the flu. Shift the runs, I told him. I'll cover afternoon dispatch. Voice stayed level. During lunch, I drove 3 blocks to the bank. Lobby smelled of lemon cleaner and old carpet. Teller pulled our accounts. I asked to freeze the joint credit cards. Not close, just freeze. She typed quietly, printed forms. I signed with steady hands. New statements to my email only. Back at my desk, the afternoon blurred through routes and fuel logs. Phone buzzed at 2:17. Lauren. I let it ring, then played voicemail on speaker. Ryan, this is ridiculous. I'm at Sarah's, but can we just talk tonight? I'll come home after work. Please. Voice cracked. Background noise hummed. I saved it and kept working. I got home at 6:05. House dark except porch light. Tyler shot free throws in the driveway, ball echoing sharp in the cold. He stopped when I pulled in. Mom texted she's coming by later. I nodded, ruffled his hair. All right. Practice tomorrow? Yeah. He looked at me a second longer, then went back shooting. Inside, I heated leftover chili, microwave humming, beans bubbling. Ate standing at the counter, spoon scraping. At 7:30, garage door, tried the old code, then stopped. Front door open with her key. Lauren stepped in, coat dusted with snow, cheeks pink. She hung her purse. She looked at me across the island, eyes puffy. Can we sit? I pulled her chair. Wood scraped floor. We sat, half-eaten chili bowl between us. I talked to Mark today, she said. He told me to come home and fix this. The fight was stupid. The certificate. I was angry. You know how I get. I reached for the folder and laid out the printed statements one by one. Chicago hotel, 2 nights, room service for 2. The bracelet charge. Dinners on dates she called late client meetings. Amounts bigger than our vacation fund. Her fingers touched the top page. They trembled. Those are work. You know that. Work doesn't pay for 2 entrees and wine at 11 p.m. Lauren. Voice even. Work doesn't explain the joint savings dipping $4,000 last quarter while I covered the HVAC and Tyler's shoes. She pushed the papers away, chair squeaking as she stood. You're really doing this? Checking receipts like some accountant? After I handled the kids, the house, The holidays while you logged all those hours at the yard? I never said you didn't do your part. Hands flat on the table. But you ran another lane the whole time. And spent our money in it. Her breath hitched. She grabbed her overnight bag from the hall closet and headed upstairs. Footsteps soft on carpet. Guest room door closed with a quiet click. Later Tyler came in, cheeks red, ball under his arm. He glanced toward the stairs. Night, Dad. Night, Bud. He went up. I stayed at the table long after the house quieted, thumb tracing the worn grain of the wood. The knot in my chest sat heavier now, like knowing the load's overweight, but you still roll. Because there was one more line on those statements I hadn't shown her. Recurring transfers every other Friday to an account I didn't recognize. Labeled M.R. Consulting. Started right after Chicago. Small at first. Then bigger. Parallel lane. And it had a name. Parallel lane. And it had a name. Mark Reynolds. I let the screen go dark and sat there in the quiet kitchen, the overhead light buzzing softly above the table. My thumbs pressed into the wood grain, leaving faint marks that faded slow. The chili bowl from earlier still sat half full, sauce dried along the rim. Outside, the snow had started again, soft flakes tapping the window like fingertips. Sleep didn't come much that night. I stayed on the couch, the Afghan pulled high, the fabric rough against my neck. Around 3 the guest room floor creaked once, then twice. Water ran in the bathroom upstairs. Then silence. The furnace kicked on with its low whoosh, blowing warm air that smelled faintly of dust and old filters. Morning light came thin through the kitchen blinds. Lauren came down first, already in her navy blouse, hairpin neat. She started the coffee, the grinder loud. Didn't look at me right away. Kids still asleep? Her voice careful. Yeah. She sipped, steam curling around her face. Ryan, those transfers were work expenses. Mark handles team reimbursements. You're seeing things that aren't there because the yard's been stressing you. I stayed quiet, watching her fingers tighten on the mug. The clock ticked loud above the sink. Tyler shuffled in next, rubbing his eyes. Emma right behind with her phone already glowing. Eggs and toast on plates. Fork scraped. Nobody said much. Emma kept glancing between us, the little crease between her brows getting deeper. After the bus pulled away, brakes hissing, Lauren grabbed her keys from the bowl by the door, metal jingling. I'll be home late. Big client thing. We can talk properly tonight. I nodded once. Drive safe. She left. Garage door rattled up and down. I stood at the window watching her taillights disappear into the gray, the knot in my chest sitting solid. At the yard, Steve handed me the morning logs. I signed them, pen steady. During lunch break, I called the bank from my truck cab, heater blowing on my boots. Asked for full statements going back 2 years. They emailed the PDFs within the hour. I sat there scrolling on my phone, highlighter app marking lines in red. The pattern was clean as a fresh manifest. Every other Friday. Amounts climbing. Perfectly timed with her Chicago weekends. The Nashville trip, she said, was with Sarah, the late nights that started right after her promotion. The afternoon kept moving. Rerouted 3 loads around an accident on I-71. Signed off on overtime sheets. But those numbers kept flashing behind my eyes every time I blinked. Home that evening, the house smelled like nothing cooking. I made spaghetti for the kids, sauce bubbling thick on the stove, garlic sharp in the air. Tyler and Emma ate quiet at the table. Mom texted she's staying at a hotel tonight. Emma said, twirling pasta on her fork. Is that true? I nodded, stirring my own plate. She needs space to think. But I'm here. Tyler pushed his food around. This really sucks, Dad. I know, Bud. Around 8:30 her car pulled in. She walked through the door carrying her laptop bag, cheeks pink from the cold. Set everything on the island. I want to show you something, she said. She opened the laptop, pulled up a folder of work photos. Marking group shots, everyone smiling at team events. Professional. See? It's all above board. You're blowing this way out of proportion because you're always tired from the yard and we barely talk anymore. I scrolled slow. One photo stopped me. Her and Mark at a candlelit table in Chicago, glasses raised. Date matched the hotel charges exactly. Client appreciation, she said fast. I closed the laptop with a soft click. Client dinners don't come with regular transfers to a personal account with his initials. Her face flushed. She started pacing, heels clicking sharp on the tile. This is insane. You went through every single transaction? I feel like I'm living with someone checking my every move. No wonder I needed air. I didn't hire anyone, I said, voice even. Just looked at money we both earned. She stopped, grabbed her overnight bag from the closet again. I can't do this tonight. I'm at the Marriott downtown for a couple nights. Work rate. I need to clear my head before we say things we can't take back. Which room? I asked. She hesitated at the door. I'll text you. But the text never came. After she left the house, felt even emptier. I sat at the kitchen table long after the kids went upstairs, the bank statements spread out under the lamp. One line jumped out this time. A pending transfer scheduled for next Friday. $18,000. To the same account. I stared at it until the numbers started to swim. She wasn't just living a double life. She was packing up to walk out of ours for good. She wasn't just living a double life. She was packing up to walk out of ours for good. The $18,000 pending transfer stared back at me from the laptop screen, scheduled for Friday. I closed it with a soft click and sat there until midnight, the snow tapping against the windows. Next morning, I made breakfast like always. Eggs, toast, orange juice in the kids' usual cups. Tyler ate slow, pushing food around his plate. Mom coming home today? He asked quietly. We'll see, bud. Emma kept checking her phone, worry clear on her face. After they left for the bus, I drove straight to my lawyer's office instead of the yard. Mr. Harlan shook my hand firm. I laid out all the statements, hotels, dinners, the transfers. He read through them carefully. This is clear financial dissipation, he said. We're filing an emergency motion today to freeze the accounts and request temporary orders. You want primary custody? Full physical for now. They need stability. By noon, the motion was filed. The bank confirmed the freeze before I even left his office. At the yard, Steve noticed me arriving late, but only asked, "Everything all right, boss?" "Handling some personal stuff," I said. I buried myself in the manifests. Lauren called at 4:47 while I stood by the fuel pumps, wind cutting across the lot. "Ryan, what the hell? My cards are declined. The accounts are locked. I can't even buy coffee." "Emergency motion," I replied calmly. "Lawyer filed this morning. That $18,000 transfer to Mark's account is frozen too." She went quiet, then breathed shakily. That money was for work. Mark needed it for a project. Project called New House in Dublin with Lauren Bennett. I said. The full records showed the wire to the title company. Escrow on a 3-bedroom townhouse, closing in 3 weeks, already in her maiden name. Silence stretched. I could hear traffic and someone calling her name in the background. "You went through everything," she whispered. "I trusted you. I trusted you for 19 years. The line went dead. She showed up at the house at 8:15 that night. No bag, just her purse and the same wrinkled navy blouse. Snow dusted her shoulders. I met her at the door. "The kids are upstairs doing homework. Keep it down." She stepped inside, leaving wet prints on the mat. Looked around the living room like she barely recognized it. "Ryan, this is getting out of hand. Mark and I, it wasn't supposed to go this far. He said the transfers were loans." I believed him. I stayed by the doorway. "He's been draining us for 2 years. You helped him, while I covered the mortgage, braces, and Tyler's basketball fees." Her eyes welled up. I thought I deserved more. The excitement. The attention. "You were always so steady." I got tired of steady. Steady paid for the life you're walking away from. Tyler appeared at the top of the stairs, Emma right behind him. Both of them pale. "Mom." Tyler's voice cracked. "Are you leaving for real?" Lauren looked up at them, shoulders sagging. The gold bracelet still glinted on her wrist. Emma spoke, voice small but sharp. "You ripped our family picture." "Literally." Lauren covered her mouth. She turned back to me, eyes searching. "I need time," she said finally, "to figure this out. The townhouse, it was stupid. Mark's already pulling away now that the money's frozen." I nodded. "Lawyer handled the temporary orders. I keep the house in primary custody. You get supervised visitation until finances are sorted. Child support will be fair." She stood there a long minute, snow melting off her boots. Then she turned and walked out without another word. Her taillights faded into the falling snow. I locked the door. The kids came downstairs. Tyler hugged me first, tight around the waist. Emma joined, resting her head on my shoulder. We stood like that in the entryway, the house quiet except for the furnace. Later, after they were in bed, I sat in the recliner, remote off. The Afghan still carried a faint trace of lavender, but it was fading. I traced the worn armrest with my thumb. The road had finally split. She took the exit marked Better Life. I stayed on the one we built. The kids would still have both parents, just different ones now. Lauren would learn what steady really cost when the excitement disappeared and the bills came due. Mark would vanish the moment the money stopped. Me? I'd keep showing up. For the runs. For the kids' games. For the quiet mornings. The knot in my chest finally eased. Not gone. Just balanced. Like a load properly secured for the long haul home.